Enterprise Entrepreneur Summit. I'm feeling great, and I haven't even had coffee. How y'all feeling today? Awesome. My name is Ramon Ray, an entrepreneur, proud member, adopted of the Black Enterprise family, and I am so deliriously excited to be here in Charlotte, Catfish, North Carolina. So I'm glad to be here. We got a few housekeeping things we want to go over today before we start. So listen carefully, and you might just win something. Listen carefully, and you might just learn something. How's that sound? We have a huge agenda tonight, so a few housekeeping things we want to talk about today. Are y'all excited? All right, so first, I want to talk about the app. How many of you have already downloaded the app? Raise your hand high if you have not downloaded the app. Turn to your neighbor and say, forgive me. Okay, download the app. The app is called Bizzabo, and you can download the latest information about this amazing summit, and that's Bizzabo, B-I-Z-Z-A-B-O, in Google Play or Apple iTunes Store. So that's the app. Number two, you still with me? We want you to tweet. How many of y'all know what Twitter is? Let me ask a question. What's the hashtag of the Black Enterprise Entrepreneur Summit? What's the hashtag? My man, I heard you loud and clear. See those beautiful lights? BENQC. We want you to use Twitter, take pictures of yourself, take pictures of your mama, take pictures of the Toyota car, take pictures of Nationwide. You take pictures of everything, and we want you to tweet that out. The most engaged user on Twitter will receive a special prize at the end of the summit. And no, I'm not giving anybody a free hug. So, third thing is a survey. At Black Enterprise, we are all about excellence. We are all about delivering the highest value we can to those of you we serve. We set up a survey also on the app that we encourage you to complete after attending each session. Now, if it's my session, you have anything negative to say, give me your phone and I will fill out the app for you. It's a short, just 3 questions, and we'd appreciate your input and feedback. Next point I want to make is about the amazing dinner we're going to have for some of you. I want to give you directions, listen carefully, on picking up your dinner tickets for the Entrepreneurs of the Year Awards Gala, which takes place this Friday. Tickets will be given out at the registration area on Friday morning and in the Biz Hub at the BE booth also on Friday afternoon. Listen carefully. You must have a government-issued ID. Those of you from small towns, library cards don't work, ShopRite coupons don't work. No. Government-issued ID to claim your ticket. And folks, if you lose it, it cannot be replaced. So please keep that in mind. If you lose it, what happens? You just out of luck. Next thing I want you to understand, we've set up for you an amazing opportunity, an amazing experience called the Biz Hub, B-I-Z Hub. We have an incredible Biz Hub this year. Take the time to get to know our corporate and our small business exhibitors. Check out the Bankers Row. Recharge in the AT&T Lounge and consult with a coach in the coaching corner, and you can take advantage of some of the new and exciting activities we have to offer. So we want you to go to where? That sounded so lame. I'm so sad. Where do we want you to go? Biz Hub. All right. Next thing, and this is about the amazing elevator pitch that we have in store for you. Many of you are familiar with our annual elevator pitch. How many are familiar with that pitch? How many? Okay, good. Number of you. And if you're not, this is an exciting time. It's a contest that occurs prior to arriving to the Black Enterprise Entrepreneur Summit, with those chosen finalists coming here to give their best business pitch for a chance to win a grand prize. And it is a grand prize indeed. Now, in addition to the elevator pitch, this year we're adding a bit more excitement to the traditional elevator pitch with the introduction, listen carefully, of a pop-up pitch. How many of you were in the networking session today? How many of you enjoyed it? Okay, nobody. Okay, all right. I think the Black Enterprise family may just fire me. Only one person enjoyed it. Great. So, we're having the pop-up pitch. 3 finalists. This is brand new to the Black Enterprise Entrepreneur Summit experience. 3 finalists will be selected randomly and in real time to pitch their respective business idea. How many of you wish more people knew about your new venture? Okay, like 2 people in the room. I don't know where I'm at. They will also have an opportunity to compete for a prize on Friday afternoon during the elevator pitch competition. Level Up Pitching for Dollars. But in this instance, instead of being voted on by a panel of judges, the winner will be selected by popular vote. It's almost like American Idol comes to Charlotte, comes to Black Enterprise, which means you, and you'll be named Summit's Choice. Doesn't that sound cool? That all of you have an equal chance to win a prize and to talk about your business to all these people here and more who will be here in later days. Here's the instructions for the pop-up pitch. Listen carefully. To enter, drop your business card or your name, your real name, in the bowl. You will find that bowl at this evening's opening reception, which is sponsored by Nationwide. Sponsored by Nationwide. And outside these doors tomorrow morning, before our programs begin, we will randomly pull the first 2 names just before our fireside chat with media mogul Byron Allen begins. You must be in attendance when your name is called. Those of you who are twins, you have to be here, not your twin. And ready to join me here on stage to give a 1-minute pitch immediately when your name is called. So I'm going to give you a quick example of an elevator pitch. In the networking session, we talked about that. Some of you, when you say give a pitch about your business, what do you say? My name is Melinda. When I was a child, my great-grandfather, it was my auntie. She called me to come in. That's too much. A pitch is my name is Melinda, and I help ladies look better than they already look by glamorizing their nails. That's what I do. You follow what I mean? Y'all don't follow. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Only some of y'all know what I mean. So that's what we're going to do, and this is going to be amazing. So again, I'm curious, how many are here to connect? Awesome. How many are here to connect? How many are here excited and ready to build? Yes, yes. And how many are here that you're excited to elevate your business or that of someone else? How many are here to do that? Everybody's here. Are you really here to do that? Are you excited? Are you excited? Because I'm excited. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce to you Derek Dingle, Senior Vice President and Chief Content Officer. Give him a warm, warm round of applause of Black Enterprise. Derek Dingle! Y'all can do better than that. Keep it going, 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 keep it going. This is Derek Dingle, y'all. Keep it going. Derek Dingle, welcome to the stage, brother. All right.
I was going to try to jump up like Ramon, but good evening, Charlotte. How are you doing this evening? BE and the QC. On behalf of Black Enterprise, I am pleased to share how excited we are here to be here in the Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina, and how appreciative we are of the true Southern hospitality that we've received since our arrival. We are here ready to conduct business, and I can assure you, Charlotte is officially open for business. Actually, both of the Carolinas, North and South, can boast of, shout out for South Carolina. Both can boast of its rapidly growing population of successful entrepreneurs. And just in a moment, we'll focus our attention on local business opportunities occurring in these powerhouse states for entrepreneurs. But first, we have an official welcome from the city of Charlotte. It is my pleasure to welcome the Deputy Director of Economic Development here in the city of Charlotte, and my good friend, Kevin Dick. Let's give Kevin some love.
All right, so everyone is sitting back down now, but Ramon got you hyped. So I need for that to continue. So I'm going to ask for everyone to stand to your feet for me one more time, please. Everyone stand up. Get the blood flowing again. And what I'm going to ask also is that if you are a current or former elected official or a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces, I'd like for you to remain standing when we're done with this, okay? Okay. So, over the past 6 months, the planning committees that worked with the city and Black Enterprise to help put this event together actually came up with the hashtag and chant BE in the QC. Okay, so I need for you to show them a little bit more love, and at the top of your lungs and from the bottom of your hearts, I need one more on the count of 3. BE in the QC. And if we don't get it right, we're going to do it again. 1, 2, 3. BE in the QC. That'll work. All right. All right. Okay, current and former elected officials, any veterans, I'd like to acknowledge you for your service to your communities and to your country. So let's give them a round of applause. Okay, great. So as Derek said, I'm Kevin Dick, Deputy Director for Economic Development with the City of Charlotte, North Carolina, the 17th largest city in the country, the 4th fastest in terms of employment growth, the #1 millennial attractor, but most importantly, the only one that is hosting the 23rd annual Black Enterprise Entrepreneur Summit. And so by the time I'm done with this speech, I expect you to either email your landlord back home, if you're from out of town, I expect you to email your landlord back home or text your realtor and give them notice, because you'll be moving. So, and as importantly, relocating your business. But it gives me great pleasure to make these introductions this evening. I'm truly humbled to serve Black Enterprise in this capacity on behalf of the city, because Black Enterprise has made an indelible imprint on me personally throughout my adult and professional life. Whether it's been reading about Earl Grey Sr. and my favorite basketball player of all time, Magic Johnson, partnering to buy Pepsi Cola bottling, or whether it's been having the opportunity to sell BE subscriptions at the Javits Center in Manhattan, or having this privilege tonight, BE has influenced, inspired, motivated, and really propelled me. And so with that, I give a heartfelt thanks for Earl Butch Graves Jr. and for Derek Dingle for allowing this to happen. Now, there are 2 great things about introducing the individuals I have the privilege of introducing tonight. #1 is that they have a lot in common. And #2 is that they are true pioneers, and they are truly the first to do the first people to do a lot of what they've been able to do during their careers. They both have ties to Columbia, South Carolina. One is the mayor of the city. The other was born in the city. They are both mayors and leaders of important cities along the I-77 corridor. And so with that, I'm going to introduce our guest first. Southern hospitality, you have to be polite. So the Honorable Steve Benjamin is the first African-American mayor in the history of Columbia, South Carolina. Did you hear that? I said the first African-American mayor in the history of Columbia, South Carolina, having been elected in 2010 as the 36th mayor in the city's history. I'll say that again. He's the first African-American mayor out of 36. On November 8, 2017, he won his 3rd term as mayor, and by the way, no one even bothered to run against him. That's how popular Mayor Benjamin is. Not only is he a leader locally in Columbia, but he's also a leader nationally. He's president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, And in true Black Enterprise Entrepreneur Summit spirit, he is a successful entrepreneur, having been a principal with Benjamin Law Firm, LLC. And if you thought he didn't understand the law enough, he's married to a judge. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce the Honorable Steve Benjamin, Mayor of Columbia, South Carolina. Okay, so I guess both mayors are going to come out at once. Okay, I was just cued to that. All right, so this next person really needs no introduction in the Queen City. The reason is due to the fact that she has been making a mark here since 1970, when she became one of the first African-American students at what was then Queens College, and now is Queens University in Charlotte. She was also a career City of Charlotte employee, having risen through the ranks from budget analyst to budget director to assistant city manager prior to her retirement. She comes from a family of entrepreneurs, with her father having owned a successful construction company. She's also a member of the South Carolina Black Hall of Fame and a national leader in her own right, having held high-level positions with the National Forum for Black Public Administrators and other such organizations. And not only was she one of the first Black students at Queens, she is also the first former city administrator to hold the title of mayor of the city. And last but not least, she is the first African-American female mayor of the city of Charlotte. That took place November 8th, 2017, when she became the 59th mayor in the city's history, the first African-American female out of 59 mayors. So as monumental as an accomplishment as that is, and as impressed as we all are, I'll tell you what impresses me the most. When I began with this city 2 years ago, and she was then Mayor Pro Tem Vi Lyles, in my first meeting with her upon arriving at the city, after we exchanged pleasantries, the first thing she said to me was, "How can I help you be more successful? How can I help you be more successful?" And so I don't want to speak for Mr. Graves too much in this regard, but it would seem to me that this summit, this conference, will be a raging success if it's nothing more than a series of conversations between individuals that always include, how can I help you be successful? And so with that, I would like to introduce not only the Honorable Mayor Steve Benjamin, but also the Honorable Mayor Viola A. Vi Lyles. And moderating today's fireside chat with the mayors will be Derek Dingle.
Thank you for being here, and Mayor Lyles, thank you for being our host for our 23rd Annual Entrepreneur Summit. Mayor Benjamin, thank you for being here. BE and the QC, but BE also loves SC. So today we want to talk about how the entrepreneurs in this room can access opportunities with the city, how they can gain municipal contracts, how the city supports them in terms of growth and capacity building. But first I wanted to start off with your signature programs, just to put into context your vision for your respective cities. Mayor Lyles, I'm going to start off with you.
Okay.
You've talked a great deal about economic mobility. Can you share with the audience what that thrust is about and how you seek to execute that?
I will, but thanks for offering us this opportunity. I want you guys to know how proud we are to host you in Charlotte, first and foremost, and really are glad that you're here, because what you are doing will make the difference for tomorrow and the next generation as well. So thank you. And thanks to Black Enterprise for doing this kind of conference, because I would hope that at the end of this conference, you would have walked away with at least 5 or 6 more contacts that could really help you grow your business or take that idea that you have to a new level. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Charlotte and why economic mobility is so important. About 4 years ago, Charlotte was ranked 50th in the large city category, 50th out of 50. And the lack of economic mobility, particularly for people of color. And the community was surprised. Now, if you were me or if you were you were not surprised. That was not an issue, because we've all known that government policy and private sector efforts built around those policies were built around the lack of opportunity and access to capital. And without capital in this country, you're just not going to be able to say that you have social mobility. We studied this program for about 2 years before the final report came out. And the report had a number of initiatives in it, but I want to just highlight 2. The very first one was that we needed to build a place and a city that we could have diversity in talent and workforce. And what does that mean? That we needed to build a city where people could afford to live here. And so we focused on affordable housing as a governmental responsibility, but we also went to the private sector. So this year, the city of Charlotte will have on its bond referendum $50 million for affordable housing programs, which will be matched dollar for dollar by the private sector for $100 million. So if you work in the city, you can be able to live in the city. And that was an important aspect of what we were doing. The second part of this economic mobility focused on the part of understanding the importance of history and what we could do to change it. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the impact of government policies and how in Charlotte we're trying to change that, and sometimes how difficult it is to be an entrepreneur, to be a small business, especially when you're a person of color.
Thank you, Mayor Lyles. Mayor Benjamin, as the mayor of Columbia, South Carolina, and as the recently inducted president of the Conference of Mayors, you have a program called the 3 Eyes. Explain what the 3 Eyes are about and why that's important for this audience.
Sure. Well, thank you, Derek, and thank Butch Graves, who we had a chance to briefly speak to earlier, and to my friend, Vi Lyles, who always gives it to you straight, and she's about getting things done. So excited to be here in Charlotte with all of you here, and I want to say thank you to all of you for making it a point to be here at the Entrepreneur Summit. Black Enterprise has meant so much to our community for the last several decades, helping lead the charge in advocacy for Black business development. I'm excited to be a part of this program. As I've ascended to the leadership of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, we decided that for the next 2 years, we're going to embark upon an initiative, an endeavor to focus on, like a laser beam, on our 3 Eyes, as Derek mentioned, recognizing that cities and metropolitan economies are driving the American economy. That regardless of what God bless the president, what he might say sometimes about our cities, the reality is that 85% of all citizens in our country now live in cities and metropolitan economies. 89% of all jobs are in cities and metropolitan economies. 91% of America's $20 trillion gross domestic product is created in cities and metropolitan economies. Cities like Charlotte boast a larger GDP in this region than many Western nations. New York City enjoys one larger than the entire country of Russia. So you understand, mayors are at the forefront of all business and business development, not just in our respective cities or 4 corners of our municipal corporation, but the entire regions in which we drive. Our focus at the Conference of Mayors for the next 2 years will be around infrastructure, innovation, and inclusion. And to briefly summarize them, and obviously I think we'll have some time for Q and A. Infrastructure, we recognize that regardless of who you talk to, America either has a $2 trillion or up to a $5.2 trillion infrastructure need. Wherever you live, you see it in roads, you see it in water, sewer, stormwater, transportation needs, schools, hospitals, airports. The needs are great. And obviously every $1 billion you spend on infrastructure, you also put 15,000 people to work. We're at a point right now where the cost of capital is the lowest it's been in several generations. So finding ways, not just through traditional means of municipal finance, but also through good public-private partnerships to really stimulate investment in infrastructure is just a smart, nonpartisan way to get the job done on behalf of all Americans. Our focus on innovation is clear. We're watching the world change rapidly every single day. The advent of automation and advanced machine learning and artificial intelligence. The future of work is changing rapidly. 65% of our children in kindergarten right now will work in fields that don't exist right now. The power of data and data analytics and the way it's changing the world, it requires us to focus on opportunities and resources that are being deployed to the tune of trillions of dollars over the next decade into what it takes for us to be smart cities. I talked to a vendor a day, probably I think Mayor Lyles does as well, all of us trying to help us figure out how we monetize this incredible deployment of everything from small cell technology that allows us to deploy small cells around our city, prepare for ubiquitous Wi-Fi and broadband and whatever that might bring, autonomous vehicles, whatever it happens to be. But a focus on innovation and recognizing that the world is changing very rapidly. And we've got to make sure we participate in the innovation economy. And then lastly, obviously, the importance of inclusion. Making sure that each of us participates in the largesse of this incredible economy that we're living in right now. What Mayor Lyles spoke about earlier, what we're seeing in terms of economic mobility, the challenges are global. Those of us who have capital are seeing the benefits of a growing economy, but those of us, people who work hard every single day, work hard from sun up to sundown, sometimes several jobs, are not seeing their paychecks grow. We're seeing great research conducted by Pew and others that show over the last 50, 60 years that our children are not doing as well as their parents did. And many of you grew up in a household like mine where it was understood that I would do better than my parents, that they made sure they worked hard every single day so that my brother and I had opportunities they never enjoyed growing up in a segregated South. So a focus on inclusion and making sure that from literally the cradle to making sure that re-entering citizens coming out of our departments of corrections, to also focusing on the issue of asset management. How do we make sure that more of our investment banks and our incredibly talented asset managers are getting incredible returns on investments for our pension systems and philanthropic institutions, that they're participating in managing the pension funds that all of us help put into these large pension systems every single day. So it's all about infrastructure, it's about innovation, and it's about inclusion. There's so many different things to talk about, but those three encapsulate the three priorities that we've decided to focus on for the next 2 years.
To unpack the visions that both of you share, you know, a common theme is one of inclusion, business inclusion. And in terms of the growth of the cities from an infrastructure standpoint, construction, what have you, how are we and how are you, both of you, ensuring that, you know, Black businesses are fully participating in the growth of the cities? You know, in Charlotte, you know, there is, you know, great construction throughout the city, the airport. How are you ensuring that African-American firms, and I know a lot is talked about MWBEs, but I want to focus on African-American firms specifically, how they are benefiting from the boom, how they are accessing opportunities to contracts? And then I'm going to follow up with you, Mayor Benjamin.
Well, let me just talk a little bit about some history in Charlotte. You know, we were a growing city before the recession, and we were beginning to have a very active minority business participation program. And because it was active, we were sued. And we had to disband our program, and we had to begin to comply with new federal regulations requiring disparity studies, requiring us to restructure the entire program. So when you talk about how difficult it is to be an African-American business owner, you really can't look just to government. So I'm going to fast forward to today and say, what is the vision that we can have for African-American businesses to be successful? And I would say in Charlotte and our region, if we can't do it in government, then what are we going to do? And when you're in Charlotte and you're looking across the street downtown, you'll see a cultural campus that was really started by the city government, but was an idea by one of our large financial institutions. And the thing that we did from our arena to that financial institution is that we worked with the CEO and we said to him, you can do this because you want to have a city that you want to be proud of. That means having diversity and inclusion. And that CEO set a 20% minority goal and said that we will focus on African Americans, not women, not other minorities, but African American minorities. And they exceeded that goal with the construction of that tower. So when I go out as mayor today, I talk to our healthcare industries who have stepped up once again on construction, saying that they are going to focus on minority construction goals for their buildings, and they too have adopted a model that we as government can't adopt and still be in compliance with federal law. So what I say about how do we get African American businesses wherever you live, you have to have a partnership between government and the private sector. But you have to tell the private sector that they have an accountability to everyone in this community. If they're going to be successful, then we need to have African American businesses be successful. And that's whether it's from event space and planning to building a tower. That's the way that we've tried to approach it. Now, I'm not saying it's all going great. We've had some great successes, but it is a hard job because when most people look at this, they think, well, you know, I don't know anybody, and I'm like, don't worry about that, we can fix that. If you get the right person in your organization, you can have a better program than anything government can do.
I'm going to ask this question of Mayor Benjamin, but I'd also like you to offer your vantage point as well, Mayor Lyles. You know, we've at Black Enterprise, we've reported on the nexus between government and business for the last 48 years. Looked at our B100s for the last 46 years. A key part of that research was examining the mayorship of Maynard Jackson, first African-American mayor of Atlanta. He put in place minority set-asides in the 70s, but in mandates when he was reelected. He created more black millionaires than any other public official, and it's been documented. Why isn't there a way in today's environment to mandate participation, minority participation, in all of the projects that we're seeing?
Yes, I think you should ask the lawyer that question.
Yeah, because
even who's not practicing the law right now. No, that's a wonderful question, Derek. Thank you. And I would say I love the depth of Mayor Lyles' answers. I will tell you, I'm not sure there's another major city in the country that also has as a mayor a seasoned public administrator as well. It's a unique skill set that adds, I think, to the depth of the leadership here in Charlotte. And we were preparing in our conference call for this session, and that question came up, and by Mayor Lyles' response was just as she just articulated. Now, how are you Maynard Jackson in a post-Maynard Jackson world? It's a real and legitimate question. The laws have changed, Supreme Court's changed, and it's a different world. So I do believe that, as Mayor Lyles just stated, there has to be a significant degree of intentionality to all things you do inside the city that you can control, but also using the force of your office, the bully pulpit of your office, to influence your potential partners who pay a great deal of attention to what the city does and what the city wants as well. We've been intentional. In our city, we spend most of our money on an aggressive infrastructure build out. We're almost 3/4 of the way through. We'll be $1 billion build out of our water, our sewer, and our stormwater infrastructure for the city. We made it a point, particularly when it comes to professional services, that every single deal we've done, every bond deal we've done in the last 8 years since I've been mayor, has included an African-American investment banking firm, has included an African-American firm as bond counsel on the transaction, has included an African-American firm as co-underwriters counsel on the transaction. And it requires, again, that intentionality. Sometimes we actually do pay a little bit more, making sure that there's a team, there's diversity, there's a good mentor-protege relationship, building people up to prepare to maybe take on some projects on their own. Several of our deals are senior managed, I might also say, by African-American owned firms from across the country. We were intentional as we built our new baseball stadium to make sure that we had good, strong representation, not just from African-American firms, but also from the people who live in our city, who work in our city, many of whom never thought they'd have an opportunity to work to build this stadium. We went to our homeless shelter, we went to our housing authority, we recruited men and women. We had 54 or so who applied to learn to build things, from masonry work to hanging sheetrock. We had about 30 that got through the program and helped build the stadium, and now 11 were permanently employed by the team after we were done. Just trying to make sure we're reaching across our economic spectrum to get people engaged in the process of earning money. But it requires an intentionality, and I think it requires you constantly articulating to your private sector partners what the values of your city are. We want our city to be the most talented, educated, entrepreneurial city in America. That requires every single one to be at the table. Our city is black, it's white. The reality is we have people from 200 different countries who speak 90 different languages. We want that to be reflected in our contracting. And I would say this too, you have to be smart enough and humble enough to also ask for help and advice and counsel. We have a wonderful minority business advisory council that we established several years ago. Several of them are here in the room today, and met with them briefly last week. And it's their job to give us good ideas. It's their job to press us and push us, to help us establish good programs, and to keep us honest, keep pushing us and helping us be better. The laws and the world's different than
how much push
than when I tell you what. But you need that. You need that good positive pressure. The laws are different than when Mayor Jackson was in office, but demands are just as significant. I dare say the challenges are greater and more complex, and we've got to be much more creative. And I will tell you, there's a whole lot more capital in the system. We've got to figure out very creatively how we have everyone participating in the process.
Mayor Benjamin talked about having minority business involved in at least advising on policy making. Is the same structure in place in Charlotte?
Absolutely,
and in terms of the pushback and in terms of the counsel and the criticism, how much do you receive, in terms of whether you're going that extra limit to make sure that, minority businesses are at the table and that they have the ability to grow to the capacity to manage, multi-million dollar contracts and eventually become primes?
I think that if you don't have an advisory group with you then you think that you're the smartest person in the room. And I know I'm never the smartest person in the room. So you do need that advice. You need those folks to come in because you can't be out there on the street every day experiencing what they experience. So when they come to you and tell you their story, I listen because they speak from experience and truth and a place that perhaps I'm not aware of. So almost every one of our economic development projects that we have an advisory committee, but particularly around our minority business program. We call it the Charlotte Inclusion Program now, and it's our revamped program after the lawsuit that we had to settle with our disparity study. But what we've done is tried to turn that from being a demand program to an inclusive program by providing, for example, financing, low-interest financing, providing through a credit union where the city actually put in several millions of dollars to spin off and work with that credit union so that you can get a loan to start a business or to bridge the time between that award that you have and the slow pay that you often have to experience. So we have some things that we tried to fix that were very specific problems built in real circumstances of people that are out here trying to make a living and running a business. So we do things in addition to that. If you're in our city and community and you've got a service industry, retail, we do facade grants. We do a number of initiatives so that we can get your infrastructure so that you can be competitive with what I would call, and what one of the stories that I heard recently is, how can I start a shop when the national chains are coming in? And the only way that we can do that is by trying to make sure our zoning works, that our regulatory reform doesn't stand in your way, and when you need that extra push for what it takes, that there's either a financing methodology or something that we can work cooperatively with you to do. Because if you have a great business community, then you're going to have great neighborhoods. If you have great neighborhoods, you're going to have stable families. And that's what we want for our city.
So the objective there is to bring entrepreneurs into the ability of gaining access into areas that they haven't had access before.
Correct.
And at the same time, Mayor Benjamin, can you go through and focus on how you engage in the whole capacity building process? Because one challenge, obviously, is one of availability and opportunity. The other challenge is having firms that have the capacity to take advantage of those opportunities.
Sure. Well, actually, today in Columbia, we hosted our Access to Capital Symposium in Columbia, Office of Business Opportunity. And I encourage some of you who have not been to Columbia, come visit, come and see the opportunities, see the development growth that's happening in South Carolina's capital city. But access to capital is still a significant issue for so many businesses. We have only one African-American owned bank in South Carolina right now. We maintain an active and significant and growing depository relationship with that bank because of the key role it plays in obviously giving people access to opportunities to build their businesses. We have a robust mentor-protege program at the City of Columbia, and we decided that as we continue to grow that program, transparency is key. So if you were to be very bored and decide you want to look at some of our council meeting agendas like we had last night, we break out on our agenda exactly how our programs, our contracts are awarded. So if a contract's awarded to someone who's a prime, the expectations are that minority-owned businesses will participate, and by each specific category, the percentage of their participation, the dollar amount associated with that is public knowledge. That type of transparency is key. It keeps us all on our game. And we've had some opportunities to develop some good, strong proteges because of this. And we've also had some challenges. Both with mentors and proteges. I mean, occasionally you'll have some majority-owned businesses, and you'll make clear what your expectations are in terms of participation. And sometimes they'll show up, and the team won't be diverse, or the diversity is not reflected in the apportionment of the contract. And we've had opportunities to cancel contracts because we just didn't think it reflected the values of the city. and we'll continue to do that if we think people aren't stepping up to what we need. But Good Mentor Protege program, I would encourage you guys to go to columbiasc.net to visit our website for our Office of Business Opportunities, to check out our commercial revolving loan fund that helps us lever up businesses that want to do business not just with the city, but also in the city.
That's a great program. I've read it, and I wish that we had it. It's a really good program.
So, Mayor Lyles, how do you go about further engagement with the minority business community, having them come to sessions with City Council, having them explore different contracting opportunities, breaking down the certification process so that they're ready when opportunities, to pounce on opportunities?
I actually have to say that in our community, I found that minority businesses have several associations that they formed, and that strength in numbers and the investment in the talent within their own skill sets, I don't have to so much go to them, they come to me. And they have answers and they have questions, and we have a very active advocacy group. And they're not only active advocating for businesses, small businesses, entrepreneurs, African-American owned businesses, but they're active politically. And they actually talk to you and describe, have you been successful at what you're doing? And they insert themselves in the process. And they do that in a way that allows me to be able to go into the private sector and say, this is a group of organized people with talent and skills and strengths. Look at the successes they've had, and how can you tell me you can't find someone because they helped me do that?
So when you go to the private sector, you know, and you did share an example, what do they say when you push them on why they're not using more diverse firms? You know, why wouldn't they use more diverse firms, you know, given the makeup of the respective cities and also the potential for innovation?
I think it's just like human nature. You go to what you've always done. And people have, our institutions, our private sector industries have grown. And they've grown with someone that maybe started out as a small business. They just happened to be, you know, available, and they've continued to use them. So you have to go with data. And you have to explain to them, take that data, but be able to explain the reason that this person is now a $1 million plus construction firm, $1 million plus staffing agency, or whatever it is because you brought them along. And so if you are going to do that for one person in our community, you can do that for more people. And that's kind of the way I start off. And I also point to the successes. Our arena had a goal of 20%, and they did 23 plus. And so we start talking about, go talk to the Fred Whitfield at the Hornets. Go talk to the people at Wells Fargo. Go talk to Bank of America, and just make sure that that whole fear factor, and I'm not quite sure why it's there, but it's just, let's just say it is there, and to show where success leads to additional success.
And it's about building relationships. I'm going to ask you one other question, Mayor Benjamin, before I go to the Q&A. You talked about smart cities. Share with us how entrepreneurs in this audience, especially young entrepreneurs, can access opportunities as the city is becoming more tech-driven, from transportation to public safety, and what has been put in place in Columbia to try to facilitate more of that innovation.
Sure. Well, the world's changing very rapidly, and the power of data, as Mayor Lyles referenced, and data analytics that help us become much more efficient organizations and deliver better customer service to our citizens is going to continue to start driving our decisions and hopefully make us much more effective as we step into the second quarter of the 21st century. A smart city and some people ask me, well, what's the opposite of a smart city? It's not a dumb city. But a smart city is a city that uses data and prepares itself to use data to become much more effective, much more efficient. That means that in our city, we're in the process, for example, of going through our advanced metering infrastructure program, in which every citizen on our system, 300, 400,000 people, will be able to tell exactly if you have a small water leak or a major water leak. You'll be able to monitor your water usage from your cell phone. It tells you exactly whether or not you're using a lot of water or not. It allows you to conserve in a better way and hopefully manage your city finances and your personal finances in a way that reflects the major challenges people are having at home with the rising cost of living. As we roll out this AMI program, there are opportunities from everyone from plumbers, literally plumbers, to folks who are data professionals as we roll out this infrastructure, which requires us to go and put small sensors literally in every home and business throughout our city and our metropolitan area that we serve. So something as simple as that, to thinking, of course, about the broader area of small cell infrastructure. Some of you may have seen these small cells popping up in the downtowns where you live that will allow folks to have incredibly ubiquitous broadband, the densification of wireless communication that will allow for autonomous vehicles, building those small cells, installing those small cells, recognizing that our large firms, tech firms, and others who deliver that infrastructure from Crown Castle or Mobility and others are all going to be spending literally trillions of dollars in that space over the next decade, recognizing that where those small cells go, if they're not in public right-of-way, they go on private land. It's a real estate play, owning land and leasing that space to those who might be those of you who might be real estate professionals or barons here. There's so many different ways to participate in the smart city economy. I encourage some of you maybe even to look at some of the research. It's everywhere right now from McKinsey and Pew. The Joint Center in Washington, D.C. has done some fantastic work, particularly looking at smart cities and innovation and the way it's going to affect communities of color. The change, the future of work as we know it will automate out several jobs that significantly affect people who are black and brown in America, and how are we preparing our communities for this shift. So there are a number of different ways to participate in the innovation economy. We just got to focus on and focus on a few things, or maybe one thing. Don't try to do 20 things. Let's try to be excellent at one or a few things and make some money.
Researching the trend and then finding your niche within those trends.
Absolutely.
Okay. We're going to open it up for questions. We can take a few questions. And please, we need to limit it to actually questions so that we can get as many in as possible.
Hi, good evening. I'm listening to Lewis Ellis from Columbia, South Carolina. And I own LLE Construction Group. So excited to see our mayor and Mayor Lyles. My question
I was born in Columbia. I just want you to know that now.
I usually say that. I wasn't going to say it. Her brother's right over there.
That's right.
He's on our Minority Business Advisory Council.
My question is, when you think about infrastructure for the city, the largest budget is usually water and sewer. Are the cities creating a pipeline to start developing, when you think about capacity building, developing our minority contractors? And I don't mean non-white businesses, African-American contractors to be able to do those type of services in the water and sewer industry, considering the amount of funding that the city spend on water and sewer. Are we looking at how can we develop an infrastructure or a pipeline of developing these contractors to do that work?
Pipeline and water.
Yes, absolutely. Our Mentor Protege program, we specifically have assigned mentor majority prime contractors with proteges in the city, and we've been able to develop some folks into that business. You know, it's an interesting business. Much of the work of water, sewer, infrastructure delivery, there's nothing glamorous about it, y'all. It is hard work, subterranean hard work, and we've been able to grow a few firms in that space. There's also a significant amount of work and money to be made in the engineering services that go along with that. We've had some good participants in that space, some who've thrived and some not as much.
Which has been a growing sector of our B100s. Mayor Lyles? Yeah.
I just want to add something, and I'm going to speak candidly here. One of the largest minority firms in Charlotte did water and sewer. He worked really hard, built a great business, and had no plans for the next generation. And when you have a family-owned business, the one thing that I would say to you is don't wait until you have no choice but to figure out what the next level of work will be done. But look, there's a lot of stuff online about this, how to make your family business go to the next generation. He did not do that, and he's no longer the largest minority contractor doing this work in Charlotte. So just think about this. We work hard, but plan just as hard.
Create a model for sustainability. Next question.
Hi, my name is Atima Louie. I have a software company, and at my company, we're committed to hiring engineers that are majority women or ethnic minorities. And I loved hearing you talk about your commitments to your cities around innovation and being prepared for the data economy in the future. Can you talk to us about any initiatives you have to educate people of color, women, underrepresented people in the engineering industry, particularly computer science and the ability to code?
The need for greater tech education and how that can lead to entrepreneurial opportunities as well.
Well, in Charlotte, we have a couple of incubators, and we have a what they call FinTech program going on right now. And one of the issues that we have is getting women and minorities to participate in that. So I don't know if Sherelle Dorsey is in the audience, but we have a group here called Black Tech now. And she sees her mission in this community as doing exactly as you said, that how do you get minorities, black people particularly, to be able to participate in the technology. So she helps maneuver through all of the systems. One of the largest technology companies that we have, brand new, called Passport, you know, when you put your credit card in the parking meter, that's what they do. And when you go up on their floor, they're not as diverse as I would like to see. And that means they often tell me, you've got to bring in people that have been trained in this direction. So Black Tech is helping people understand that they can change careers and get this accomplished if you just have an interest in doing that. And then if you have that training and you're coming to Charlotte, how do you get involved in it? Because we know that financial technology is the innovation of the future, the whole artificial intelligence. And one day I expect, you know, how money will, I don't know, maybe we won't even need it. It'll just be a card somewhere. But at that point, now we are not ready. And we have to do more, and I appreciate the nonprofit world, Black Tech Charlotte, for doing that.
Yeah, we have some great firms in Columbia we've been working with, primarily some public-private partnerships through our Regional Technology Council, Ingenuity SC, that's allowed us to work very closely with our school district, Richland School District 1, to develop a pipeline of talent. And we've seen, I will tell you, we've seen some incredible success with our black girls and our black boys choosing to chase careers in STEM. Prior to the Interstate Banking Act, we actually had some large banks based in South Carolina. They all came to North Carolina, across the border after North Carolina really made some significant strides in interstate banking, but left behind a very strong legacy, a framework of financial firms as well as a strong insurance technology cluster that continues to be one of the best in the country. I think second only to Hartford and maybe Silicon Valley in some way. We're seeing some significant investment in that space and continue to engage with our tech leaders locally, but also spending some time in trips to Silicon Valley, pushing for more inclusion and diversity in the industry.
Okay. Mayor Lyles, Mayor Benjamin, thank you for sharing how you're driving opportunities for African American businesses, as well as what's coming on the horizon for those innovators who can seize opportunities. Please, let's give Mayor Lyles and Mayor Benjamin a round of applause, please. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ray.